This video will change the way that you see Qui-Gon Jinn. Jedi Master Qui-Gon has always been an outlier among the Jedi of his generation, unafraid to disobey orders and seek his own answers that lie outside the previously established Jedi dogma. Despite being born in the wrong generation, Qui-Gon more closely resembles a curious, open-minded knight of the Old Republic than the more modern Jedi, ones that were far more prone to explore and were not inhibited by latent biases, which were manifested over the course of centuries. From a certain point of view, this might make Qui-Gon Jinn one of the most successful Jedi of his era, but this did not mean he was without his share of failures. So today, students of the Force, let's explore what was arguably Qui-Gon Jinn's greatest failure during his time as a Jedi and over his long life. Over the course of his career, Qui-Gon trained no less than 3 Padawans to knighthood, with Obi-Wan being his third and final apprentice before the Elder Jedi's untimely death at the hands of Maul on Naboo. His first Padawan, a human student by the name of Femor, was trained to knighthood by Jinn early on in his career, and soon became a mainstay of the Jedi Order, ultimately obtaining the rank of Master himself and serving the Republic for years after his graduation. While his first Padawan proved to be a promising success, he soon found more difficulty with Qui-Gon's second apprentice, a brash and aggressive noble by the name of Xanatos. Xanatos was born of a powerful family on the world of Telos IV, still retaining many memories and emotional attachments to his father, his sister, and his homeworld, even when he was inducted into the Jedi Order, so much so that he soon bragged about his nobility to his fellow initiate. While the Council acknowledged this as a red flag, they did little to address this issue in the moment, believing that Xanatos would grow out of his arrogance in time and with more training. Upon achieving the rank of Master, Qui-Gon Jinn took Xanatos as his second apprentice and taught him the ways of the Jedi on Coruscant. At one point, Xanatos encountered Femor, and now fully established a Jedi Knight, the two sought to spar their master in a 2-on-1. In the sparring session, Xanatos exploited Femor, who was meant to be his ally, in order to achieve the victory over their master and Qui-Gon. This show disturbed Qui-Gon and prompted a discussion about his wrongdoing with Xanatos. This collection of aggressive behavior and brash willingness to cause harm for his own personal gain made Yoda skeptical of his readiness to be a Jedi Knight, to which he decided to give Xanatos one final test. Around this time, Xanatos' own world of Telos IV was on the brink of a civil war and was currently battling severe civil unrest. As a final test of his loyalty, Qui-Gon and Xanatos were dispatched to Telos IV in order to make sure that Xanatos' loyalty truly lay with the Jedi, and he would make a worthy knight in time should he pass the trials and be allowed to graduate into knighthood. Once on Telos IV, however, Xanatos became severely conflicted at the sight of his father and sister being struck with immediate turmoil. Now with his father Qui-Gon, who was a corrupt governor of his own homeworld, and upon realizing that his own son had been among the Jedi sent to assist, he sought to enlist his own son's help, mending their fractured relationship in the process. While Xanatos believed his father had abandoned him and left him behind in favor of the Jedi, in truth, Qui-Gon regretted ever sending his son away to Coruscant to begin with. From here, a conspiracy was set in motion to frame the Jedi for much of the unrest on Telos, including various assassinations and economic attacks, ultimately hoping to sway Xanatos into choosing an allegiance to his father and his people over the corrupt order of Jedi who had been believed to be the cause of the impending war. As the conflict escalated, the conspiracy was ultimately exposed, and Qui-Gon was revealed as the evil man he was as the planet was thrust into an all-out war, placing Xanatos firmly in the middle of it. As a last-ditch effort to save a Jedi Padawan who had also been stationed on the planet, Qui-Gon confronted Qui-Gon for the well-being of Tamarek, the endangered Padawan in question. This led to a duel between Qui-Gon and Jinn, which Qui-Gon ultimately perished by Jinn's hand in front of Xanatos, cementing the boy's divide between himself and the Jedi, specifically Qui-Gon. Ultimately, Xanatos chose family and his people over the Jedi and his master, failing his final test and becoming a dark Jedi in the process, embracing aspects of the dark side and using his latent aggression to augment his already incredible power at just 16 years of age. Once riots consumed the temple, Qui-Gon abandoned Xanatos on Telos, over which he now lay claim to the ruling class, and he returned to Coruscant to report Xanatos' death to the Council. As far as the public knew, Xanatos had died defending the Jedi Order and trying to bring peace to his homeworld, until the Dark Jedi's resurgence years later. and Qui-Gon subsequently dismissed the entirety of his success as a Jedi Knight. This would be an event that would scar Qui-Gon Jinn for the rest of his life. He went so far as to ignore his success in training Femor, calling Xanatos his first real apprentice and seeking to start anew with a third apprentice. Here, he took on Obi-Wan Kenobi, who would ultimately prove to be the aging master's final Padawan, though this was not the last we would see of Xanatos. Over the next several years, Xanatos sought to increase his political influence over the homeworld of Telos, using the Restoration as a means to achieve power. He supported libraries, medical centers, and various other public services in order to garner goodwill, climbing through the ranks until he became one of the most powerful political individuals on the entire planet, not ruling by fear, but earning goodwill and respect from his people. He even went so far as to build a family of his own, having a wife and a son from whom he disclosed his hatred of the Jedi. Although his son did not inherit his Force sensitivity, he continued to groom the boy as the heir to the world, which now consisted of a powerful mining colony and substantial political influence on the world of Telos, all while Qui-Gon was in the midst of training his next apprentice, one Obi-Wan Kenobi. After amassing the political and entrepreneurial power necessary, Xanatos made the decision to enact his revenge on Qui-Gon for killing his father. This came when Qui-Gon received a call from Vir Ta, who had discovered a rare element known as ionite on Banadir. As the head of a successful mining colony, Xanatos ventured to Banadir under the guise of mining these rich deposits of ionite, while in truth, it was his intention to overpower the current mining guild and take control of Banadir for himself. This included jeopardizing the Jedi Agricultural Corps stationed on Banadir, which he knew would call forth Jedi interference, and Qui-Gon would volunteer to assist, knowing who truly was responsible behind the attacks. Xanatos then placed several ion charges, preparing a chain reaction to kill Qui-Gon and numerous residents of the planet, causing Qui-Gon to die with the knowledge that he was unable to protect the citizens that he himself had put in harm's way with the failure to properly train Xanatos to knighthood. Xanatos, however, wore a mask of diplomacy as peace talks were enacted, feigning ignorance even as the bombs went off. When the chaos ensued, Xanatos was able to remain publicly ignorant, pretending to fight against the guards attacking Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in order to get closer to Qui-Gon. After incapacitating Obi-Wan, taking his gear, and sending him to the mines, he was finally left alone with Qui-Gon, where the two faced off once and for all. Qui-Gon claiming that Xanatos' continual use of a lightsaber was a disgrace, and that he did not deserve to wield one. They began with a verbal match, debating who betrayed who and lashing out at one another regarding who had truly been weaker. Xanatos boasted the power of the dark side, while Qui-Gon attacked his former Padawan's ego, ultimately escalating the verbal lashing into a physical duel. With the aid of the dark side, Xanatos had learned how to match his master in single combat, becoming evenly matched and dueling to a stalemate for the duration of their conflict. Ultimately, a mere lapse in footwork allowed Qui-Gon to wound Xanatos and slowly begin to take the upper hand, though this proved to be short-lived. Upon drawing Obi-Wan's lightsaber as well, Qui-Gon immediately became concerned with the whereabouts of his new Padawan and fending off Xanatos just long enough to escape, thus commencing the only time Qui-Gon had ever fled from a fight. Over the years, Xanatos continued to serve as a continual opponent for Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, encountering them several times throughout Kenobi's training. Year by year, he became more and more powerful, but as Qui-Gon Jinn's own strength waned with age, that of his newest apprentice in Obi-Wan continued to grow. Ultimately, at 25 years of age, he encountered Qui-Gon and Kenobi for the last time on Telos as it burned, and in one final act of defiance, he chose to plunge himself into a pool of acid in order to haunt his former master forever. If Xanatos could not kill Qui-Gon Jinn, then he would remain and persist as a stain on the aging master's conscience, knowing that he would never be able to save Xanatos. But anyway, my friends, what do you think of the story of Xanatos? And do you think that this was Qui-Gon Jinn's greatest failure? And if not, what do you think was worse than his failure with his second apprentice? As always, my friends, thank you guys so much for watching the video. May the Force be with you, and I will hopefully catch you in the next one.